Alright, so we have the Hubsan Zino Mini Pro. What we're going to do in this video is we are going to do a firmware update, but we also want to focus on the temperature, how hot this gets during an update. So we should be prompted to do an update here, and then when you do your updates or you're downloading your files and stuff, when you're not flying, you want to put this on because the bottom of this baby gets hot. This is not a heat sink. It's a piece of plastic. It's just a protective barrier. It's a heat shield, not a heat sink. I hear people saying it's a heat sink. It does nothing to pull heat and protect the quad. It's here to protect you or the surface that it might be setting on. So it goes in place here, and we're not going to put it on today because I want to pay attention to how hot this actually gets, and we're going to use this right here and measure the temperature. But I just want to point out, and I'm going to always make a point of this, when you see people do videos, there's plenty of videos out there where they're talking about the heat, and you see them say, oh yeah, it's not that hot. Well, right here it doesn't get hot. It's right here. It gets very hot right here. It gets too hot to touch. So we're going to see just how hot it gets during a firmware update. So let's go ahead and start that process. It should tell us to do the update. Let's go ahead and start the quad up. I already have the controller on. And then one thing also is make sure your charger's fully charged and that your drone or your quad is fully charged, your battery. So let's go ahead and enter device, and it should prompt us to do a firmware update. FPV shutdown reminder.
FPV has been turned off. It will turn on automatically after the aircraft takes off.
I don't know if you could hear that, but it just says the FPV is turned off and will be turned on after the aircraft turns on or takes off. You have no FPV until you start your motors and take off, is all that's telling us. But here we have a firmware upgrade, so we're going to say upgrade. And it says, as shown, we need to plug the phone into the quadcopter. So what we're going to do here is disconnect from the controller. Trying to do this without hitting the screen, and we're going to plug in to the quad. So now that we're plugged in, it detected it and it says we can upgrade. So I'm going to click upgrade, and then we're going to download the files. Hopefully all this goes smoothly. Now this is a different process. If you have a Zino, this is different from what you're normally used to with the regular Zino, the Zino 2, the Zino Pro. This is a new way of doing it. So it's going directly to the quad with your device, doing the firmware update. So hopefully this is a much smoother process than the other Zinos have been. They can be a bit of a nightmare to do your firmware updates. And I'll fast forward this till we get to 100%. Okay, so now it has fully downloaded it and we're at the upgrade. And before we do the upgrade, I just want to say this is version 1.29, and you probably can't read it, but it says the update of content here is added slow flashing function for fill light, and then fix known bugs. Every update is fix known bugs. So I guess we know what those bugs are. As far as I know, it's missing features, some disconnect issues, and so forth. But we're going to click upgrade. And this is where you cross your fingers. Say a little prayer. And we'll fast forward to 100%. Wait for it to say 100% and then go to step 3. Never interrupt the process. Just let it go. So it says we're finished. We successfully did a Hubsan firmware update. That's something to celebrate. That's the FPV reminder. Got it. And then we're going to close out of this. So we're completely updated here. Our CPU is showing 50. Let's take it from here. I'm going to do a shutdown before I unplug it from there. So I want to unplug it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my app. And I'm going to reopen it, start fresh, and hook everything back up. To the controller. Power the quad back on. And just do that update process. Let's check what the bottom temperature is feeling like. It's actually not bad. We'll check it here. (106 Fahrenheit on the edge, 105, 103 up the middle here. It's actually reading through it. But we're hitting about 110. Now if you touch this, this isn't bad at all. It's not even hard, it's just barely warm. The heat is all out here, but again, it's not too bad. Right here it's pretty hot. So right here it's reading about, my highest point was 1012 or 112. If you can see that, yeah, 112 Fahrenheit. So that's not bad. 112 is not bad. That's fine. So it's going to get hotter. It should. So now we have a prompt here that says, please bind your account and remote control to get Hubsan Care. See, I'm not going to do that. We're going to enter the quad. FPV shutdown, got it.
FPV has been turned off. It will turn on automatically after the aircraft takes off.
And it shows us here everything is normal. I'm going to exit out of that. So we've done a full update on this. Just wanted to show you that's the process you go through when you're doing a firmware update. And just to remind you that this does get hot. And also to remind you, make sure you go and do your calibrations after a firmware update. After a firmware update, a lot of people say the quad flies really bad. And that's because usually they probably did not do their calibrations. And the key to doing calibrations is to do them properly. So make sure you know how to do them, and I will do a separate video on just how to do these calibrations. So that is it for the firmware update on the Hubsan Zino Mini Pro.